bot in here. And of course, get our... lost my place. Get our Discord posted. So, hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson, and it is July 7th, and this is the July 7th Text Quest Devstream. So, let me adjust my headset here for a bit. Today we're going to be focusing on custom adventure stuff again. As of right now, we have logic nodes placeable and draggable. And when you click on them, they will log out their GUID. So we can navigate to, like, say, get bool. We can click on that, and you'll see that this logs out its unique GUID. That allows us to basically have these nodes know which logic data set they're going to be associated with, because all of the behaviors and logic nodes are correlated to a specific scriptable object that can take in data and then manipulate it. So it's a little awkward because all of that needs to be set up in a way that is somewhat, well, A, generic, and B, can be used in a variety of contexts, which is basically what generic means. But the next thing that we really want to do is we need to handle a couple of things. One is we need to get the inspector working for this, which we have a rough idea of how we want to handle it, but we don't actually have it set up yet. We're going to need to basically populate a bunch of arbitrary fields based on the JSON data that is generated by the logic associated with this given node. So that's a lot of information. But we're going to start by working on the inspector stuff today, and I'm guessing that that's probably going to be what we end up working on for the majority of today. Let's go ahead and close this down. We're going to hop over to here. I'm going to jump over to our logic panel, click on our logic map, and then go to our logic lists and values. Node inspector, there we go. So I started work on a bool field and an int field, and int fields will actually have two different versions, similar to float fields, where they'll have a constant, well, not a constant version isn't a good reference. So int fields can basically be either input fields, think something like this, where you can type a number in, like that. Or a slider, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to find an example of right here, which is basically just a standard scroll bar, kind of like this, except it sets a value. Take a drink real quick. Sorry, I needed a drink. Anyway, we're also going to be coding today. So I would like int fields to support both of those, and we'll just have I might end up making it like int field is the input field version, and then like range field is the slider based version. So we'll go ahead and open this up. But basically all of those fields are going to be some form of what I'm calling a node field. Oh man, I knew I should have opened this up. Every time before I do my dev streams, I close all of my applications down and then adjust some of my system settings, because for some reason Unity caches system settings when it opens up. So in order to have my headset actually be attached to Unity, I have to switch off my speakers, turn on my headset, and have Unity actually detect those things. Actually, my headset's always turned on, it's just not the default. And apparently Unity doesn't switch defaults very easily, so it's very annoying. Anyway, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to collapse a bunch of this stuff, which I thought I already did, but apparently not. So to show you what a field is kind of going to look like, so this is what the field for a bool, which is just a true or false value, will look like. It has a toggle, which can be on or off. On means it's true, off means it's false, obviously. And this is just initialized via a JSON blob and a JSON value. It's pretty straightforward there. And int field is pretty much going to be the same, except it's going to have a regular old field. So we're going to go ahead and say, I can serialize these, right? Yeah. So I'm going to say serialize field. That was interesting. Private. We're going to say TMP input field. This will be our, I guess input field is what I'll just call that, is equal to null. I don't think I really have anything else that I want for this. So I think the I'm going to make like a CG underscore node int range field that's basically extends this. We're going to say protected virtual void on input changed. We're going to say string value. Okay, and then we're going to say protected virtual void start. And then we're just going to say input field, input field dot on end edit, I think is what I want. Ooh, on end text selection. We can just do it on end edit, honestly, that's probably fine. Dot add listener, and then on input changed. Pretty straightforward there. What we're going to do here is we're just going to say, am I going to do anything with that actually? Actually, I don't exactly. Let's see. So it's going to basically be like that. Okay, so we're going to come down to here. Let's say private int value is equal to 0. We're just going to say this dot value is equal to value dot to int is what I'm going to need to say. Dot to int. Oops, not that. Oh, right, that makes sense. So I'm going to say using sleepyowl.common here is equal to value dot to int. Okay, on value updated is just going to be this dot value, I suppose. Pretty straightforward, and initialize is also what I'm going to need. So I'm going to come down here. Okay, this dot value is equal to JSON dot value, and then we're going to say input field dot text is equal to value dot to string. All right. Do I want to allow formatting? Yes, no, maybe so. Nah, it's okay. I could possibly add optional formatting like this, which would force it to have always have 2 characters or something, but I don't know if that's going to be for the best or not. So we'll just do this. Okay, so the next thing we want is on input change. That's basically all we need. You'll notice that these are pretty similar. So let's go ahead and let that compile. That's going. I'm going to create a new script field. Ooh, maybe. Let's say create C# script. I'm going to call this CG underscore node int range field. And let that compile. Open this up real quick. Okay. Text quest. And we're going to make this derived from, oh wait, text quest dot custom adventures. This is going to derive from CG node field. Okay, so then we're going to say, actually no, it's going to derive from that CG underscore node int field. And then we're going to say using Unity engine.ui, using sleepyowl.common. I might actually not need, yep, I don't need the UI there. And then we're going to go ahead and say override on input changed, override start, and then we're going to need to come down to here, and we're going to say private void on slider checked changed int value. This is going to be fun. So we're going to say serialize field private slider, which I don't actually think it's going to be a float. And then we'll say, I guess we'll just call it int slider is equal to null. Yeah, all right. Excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and say int slider dot on value changed dot add listener, and then on slider changed, which I know is going to cause a problem, so we'll have to cast that as a float, and then we'll have to round it. So we're going to say, well, there's actually a couple of things. So base on input change, which yeah, that's actually what we want. We're going to call that, and then we're going to say, in addition to that, we're going to call int slider dot value is equal to value dot to int. Go ahead and call that. That should be fine. And then on slider change, we're going to go ahead and say input field. What? Oh, it's because I serialized it privately. Let's go to definition here real quick. Make that protected. And I'm going to go ahead and comment this. So tooltip input field, the player can type int value into, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and also comment on some of this stuff. So we're going to say node field for input field based int values. Terrible, but it works. Okay. I'm going to say grab this, come over to here, paste this in for, instead of, I'm going to say slider based int values. Let's go ahead and tooltip this slider for to adjust for values. I'm just going to call this for int values. Okay, so on slider change, we're going to go ahead and say this dot value, which is private still because I'm silly, protected. That again. This dot value is equal to mathf dot round to int value. I would normally have just casted that to int because it shouldn't really matter, but it's better to be safe than sorry in these cases. And if you actually cast an int value like this, it will truncate to whatever the lowest. Like casting rounds, I think, to the floor. It doesn't round to the closest number. So I believe if you tried to cast a float value of like 1.7 to an int, you wouldn't get 5, you would get 4. But using mathf.round or mathf.round to int, that makes sure it's correct. It really shouldn't matter because these values should be whole numbers anyway, because I'm going to set the slider to use whole numbers, but it's still good to just have that assurance. Anyway, once we have that, we can go ahead and say, again, same thing. So input field dot text is equal to this dot value dot to string. Pretty straightforward. That's all we should really need. Oh, we will need to override int, or initialize actually. So we're going to say override initialize. We're going to call base dot initialize, and we are also going to say int slider dot value is equal to this dot value. And I think that will work. I guess we can say value. It should automatically convert it, but I typically like to convert them myself. You know what? It's fine. We'll just do that. Okay. So we have our start, input changed on slider value changed on input. Okay, so that should be good for that. Let's go ahead and let that compile. And I'm going to start work on our prefabs for this. We want our node inspector. There we go. And we are going to have fun setting up what this is. I believe this has... I guess they're not really associated with anything, are they? That makes sense. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and grab node field. I don't think we actually have anything referencing node field yet, except for the stuff that's derived from it. Yeah. So let's set up a couple of nodes. So we'll set up int constant. Well, we'll set up so an input field, an int slider, and a bool value check. So let's go ahead and say node inspector. We're going to go ahead and create a vertical layout group, I guess, which probably honestly could be the entirety of this, but we'll go ahead and have this. Oh, do I want to have that? You know what? No, it doesn't make sense for me to do that. So we're actually just going to go ahead and delete that real quick. I'm going to add. Actually, you know what? No, I will add a child for just to give me some greater control over this. I'm going to add a vertical layout group. Vertical layout group. We'll give it a spacing of 10. Probably is pretty good. Padding all around 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 from the bottom, 10 from the top, 10 from the right, 10 from the bottom. This actually is problematic now that I'm thinking about it because we don't want it to be. Oh yeah, then it's actually a very good thing that we did this. So I need this to also be, or use a content size fitter with a vertical fit of preferred size, or actually, you know what, min size is probably fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. So we're going to say min size. This is going to be our inspector grid. Okay, and that's going to let me basically go ahead and create these objects. I'm going to create a layout, or I'm going to add a layout group to it. So I'm going to say layout element. It's going to have a min height of, we'll say 50. This is going to be child controlled size. Okay, yeah, there we go. Why are you in the middle? This is interesting. Huh. Oh, right. Right. Ah, there we are. I almost forgot. I forgot that since I'm doing a vertical layout grid or group with a content size fitter, I need to make sure that my position and my anchors and my pivot are all set to be up at the top. Okay, so this is going to be our bool field. And then we're going to go ahead and create a new TextMesh Pro text below this. Give that a second. Give it our 8-bit font. We are going to use. That's fine. Let's see. So we're going to call this field name. Good God, that is much too small or too large of a font size. Put that down to 24. Yeah, I guess that's probably the best we can do. Zoom in on this real quick. So for this to set up properly, we're just going to call this label. We're also going to confine this. Geez. Ideally, I was going to set this up similar to Unity, so it's got the name over here and then the field over to the right. But I might not have enough of a setup for that. Like I don't know if I have enough room. So I might adopt a top bottom approach, where we have the field name at the top and then the field value below it. So this would actually be something like this. There we go. Field name. And then we can go ahead and set up our actual value. So UI, I'm going to put in a toggle. Okay. I'm going to have this be. I'm going to get rid of the label. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this. Man, this gets super awkward. So we're actually going to set this up as the value. This is going to be our value. Toggle is going to go below this. It's going to be aligned to the left, and it's going to have a size. Let's see here. Okay, well, you're no good, so let's go ahead and stretch you. Position X of 10. Of course, your pivot is all screwy. A width of, I think that's going to be what, like 25? Interesting. Why would that not be the case? Oh, right, because I made that 60. Make that 50. It's looking not great. So let's go ahead and make that 60. And then we're going to give our toggles a couple of adjustments here. I'm actually going to go ahead and change a bunch of this. So we're going to make this a sliced, solid sliced. Okay, there's our check mark. Go ahead and add this as a solid sliced as well. We're going to go ahead and grab this. Actually, no, we can do this. This is going to be our background. We're going to set this up as sliced. We're not going to fill center. And then we're going to give ourselves, have this be stretched with 5, 5, 5, and 5. Okay, that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and stretch this. Oh, that's interesting. Why did I do that instead of you? Let's go ahead and stretch you to be like that. With 0 from the left and 0 from the right. And then we can make this, what, 30? Yeah, there we go. So that's basically what a bool field would look like, and I'm not crazy about that aesthetic because it's kind of confusing. Eh, I don't generally, well, okay, hold on. So we're going to need a couple of things. One, I'm going to go ahead and collapse this. I'm going to make this 75, and then we're going to give our, this 0.4, and this 0.4 as well. Okay. So that's roughly what they'll look like. That looks a little bit better because it gives me some more space and breathing room, but it's still a little awkward. Um, mm, I just don't like having the value or the field be to the left. That makes it more difficult to really wrap your head around. So it might be good to have an offset from the left of like 50. So we have this indentation going on. That way it makes it a little bit easier to look at. Oh man, this gets so much worse with the inspector, or with the, okay, yeah, no. This isn't good enough. I need more space. I gotta bump this up. I'm gonna make this like 400. Yeah, that just gives me so much more room to work with. Okay, so we're gonna make that like 400. That's roughly what it's gonna look like. Yeah, within our game, this is kind of the layout we would use. We're gonna go to, maybe I can make this 350, 300. Get away with that. That's a lot better, honestly. The challenge here is still. So that's what a bool field would look like. Before we make that into a prefab, let's go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to make the infields as well. So I'm going to call this infield. There we go. We're going to get rid of this toggle. We're going to create UI, Text Mesh Pro input field. All right, I'm going to call this input field, I guess. Terrible naming. We're going to go ahead and give our background a sliced solid look to it with a text area placeholder. Right. So I'm going to need. We're going to need to actually add. Think about how I want to handle this. I could make you a rect mass 2D, but it might just be easier actually to remove this. I'm going to say UI image followed by UI. this a solid sliced again. We're going to give this 10, 10, 10, and 10. We're going to make this one freaking solid black. Not a lot of space to actually type, which is not great. Which probably means that we're looking at a offset of like 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 instead, which is a little bit, that's not terrible. Go ahead and swap this over to a bit font, enter text. We don't need you to be italicized, and we probably can have you be centered aligned with an offset of 5 and 5 again. Text area, let's go ahead and have the stretch to be the entirety of this. That makes it a lot easier. It's much better. And this is not going to really require placeholder, I guess, because it's always going to have a value. So we can probably get rid of that safely. Set this to none, set this to 0.2. There we go, placeholder. So we don't need that. We can come down to here. Let's make this be our 8-bit font again. I'm going to go ahead and type some text in here. So we're going to say something like 100 by default. We're going to wrap this up, make it white. We're going to have this be aligned in the middle and aligned center, actually, now that I think about it. So that's pretty good. It's still really small, which I do not care for. I would ideally like to make those fields a lot bigger. Label, how much breathing room do you have? You have a lot of breathing room, but you kind of need that. Maybe I should make these fields be like 100. It's actually a lot better. But then it makes those checkboxes absolutely massive. But then again, honestly, I feel like that's not too much of a problem. So let's go ahead and make this toggle be, what, 50 wide? Okay, 40 wide is probably actually correct. All right, so that's that. Let's go ahead and go down to our, so our infield looks pretty good. We might go ahead and make this actually use 15 and 15 from the left. Does the top really need that? Why is the top? Oh no, it's because it actually has quite a bit of breathing room. So I mean, we'll still give it 10 by 10. So that's not too bad. Let's go ahead and jump back down to here. We're going to increase this size to 24. Much better. We're going to go ahead and duplicate infield now. We're going to call this int range field. Int range field. All right, and with this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep the value, but we're actually going to shrink it a bit because now our input field, we're going to go ahead and have it be aligned like this. We're going to give it a pivot 0, 0, a width of 100. That is kind of good. Not crazy about this. So here's the problem with sliders is that you always need an input field with a slider. And normally I would put the actual value over here. Actually, you know what? No. Gross. I really don't want to. I would prefer to have these be on the same line, but I can't get away with that unless I make this inspector way. Oh yeah, and this is what I was talking about, by the way. But I can't get away with having them on the same line unless I make this a lot smaller and give the slider a lot more breathing room. So I'd have to make this a lot wider again, which would put it at like 350, something like that, which really doesn't look terrible. I could probably shorten this even to 75. I don't want to go much shorter than that though. So let's go ahead and we're going to right click UI slider. I'm going to have this stretch all the way. It's going to be 80 from the left, and we have a bunch of stuff that we have to change to make this not look like crap. So we're going to go ahead and say our background is our solid sliced again. Okay. And then our fill area is going to be like this. Our fill, let's go ahead and give our slider value, I don't know, something like halfway point. Maybe not. Let's do this with max value of 100. We'll give it value of 50. We'll only use whole numbers. Let's tint our background color to red. No, we want the background to be white, but the fill should be like blue or something so that we can easily see what we're working with here. We'll eventually change this to be an arbitrary color, I guess, so we can set that up. But, I might actually just make it a default color of some kind. Either way, we're going to go ahead and call this a solid sliced again. All right, that's going to give us a little bit of an offset, and we actually need to have this be 0 by 0, I believe, and then the fill area is actually going to handle our indentation. So we're going to say 5 from the left. Oh, geez, right, I forgot. All of these things are sized very sillily. Okay, so we're going to say fill area is going to be 0 and 1. 0, oops, sorry, 0 and 1. Then our actual fill area is going to be 5 from the right, 5 from the top, and 5 from the bottom. We're going to go ahead and fill in our background with another image that I'm going to call solid sliced, obviously, because that's what I do. We're going to have this stretch all the way. And I'm just going to make this like a middling gray, kind of, like that. And then 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. That's just there so that it's immediately apparent where the actual value range for the slider is. I got the hiccups, I apologize. Our handle is also going to be a solid sliced. It's going to be something like that. And we could, if we wanted to, we could probably make that like a, something like that kind of. Which means that this background probably needs to be like, I don't know, 50. Like that. I'm also going to call this like fill. All right. That's pretty much all we really need to do. So if we change this slider value, let's make sure that it looks correct. So like all the way at 0, all the way at 1. It's flush with both of those. That's good. We never see any gaps. Okay. So you can see that we're rounding to our whole numbers, which is good. All right. So that's pretty much all we need there. We're going to have this be, I don't know, all the way up, I guess. And we will give it 85. 75, sorry. 85 from the left. We'll give it 10 padding here. So that's, it's functional. It's a little rough looking, but you know, it's better than nothing. Let's go ahead and say int slider. All right. So now we can go ahead and attach our fields here. So we're going to say there's our label and there's our toggle. Go ahead and do that. Here's our int field. So we're going to go ahead and attach this. Okay. And for our int field, we're going to have our label and our input field. Int range field is also going to be this. And we're going to have our label, our input field, and our slider. All right. So now we can make these all prefabs, and they should be loadable. Let's go ahead. I guess actually while I'm here, I might as well set up float and string fields. That way I can have all of the basics covered. We do have some special fields that we're going to have to deal with, like variable fields. So variable selection is going to be a drop-down format. And I guess we'll have, yes, I see you, cat. I don't know if we want to handle that as like nested, where you can set up the variables. Well, no, that wouldn't really make sense. Well, we'll see. So let's go ahead and come down here. We're gonna go ahead and right click, create C sharp, and I'm gonna say CG underscore node float field. Create JavaScript CG underscore node float range field. All right, and let's go ahead and open those up. Okay, let's open up both of those. Might as well. We're going to go ahead and grab node in field because we're pretty much going to do the exact same thing, just with floats instead of ints. So we're going to change this to, so we're going to say using TM Pro. We're going to need to say using sleepyowl.common. This is going to be textquest.customadventures. We're going to say this is going to derive from CG node field. Okay, so instead of ints, this is going to be a float. And this is going to be dot to float instead. It's dot value. All doing pretty well there. I'm pretty sure that'll cast correctly, so we'll see. And with you, okay, yeah, we do want to base that field index. That vaguely makes sense. Oh, actually, hold on. I actually need to know what the field index is. Ah, there we go. It's automatically doing it. Okay. I say I know I was doing something with that index. Okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump over to here, which I will then grab from node range field. We're going to grab all this fun stuff, paste this, make this text quest dot custom adventures. And we're going to say using Unity Engine. Wow. Using Unity Engine.ui, using sleepyowl.common, using TM Pro. All right, this is going to derive from CG node float field. Okay. We want, instead of, it's just going to be value. We don't have to round it to int anymore. That is pretty good. I'm guessing that we probably want to format this as like 0 dot, not that, 0 0. I honestly don't think that we're really going to need much more precision than that visually. Let me check some of this actually. Because of that, it means that I'm going to want to change this, and we're going to say input field dot. It's basically going to be like this. Oops. So we're going to copy that, paste this, and we're just going to paste that. Fine, work with me here. Don't need to say to int anymore. Oh, right, I do need to say to float. Sorry. Dot to float. And I can rename int slider to float slider. Float slider to just for float values. And type a float into. Okay. That should essentially handle all of that initialization. Let's go ahead and copy this. I'm going to paste it for descriptions everywhere because, again, it's important to do this. Node field for input or for toggle based bool values. Go ahead and come back over to here for input based float values and grab paste float values. All right, pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and let that compile. And I can probably just go ahead and duplicate these fields. Just rename them. So float field, float range field. Between both of you, of course, only one of you is. Okay. We need to make this a scroll area, which I just realized, which is super fun. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create UI scroll view. All right. We're going to have this stretch out the entire thing. And for that, I guess the way we're going to handle this, we don't need a scroll bar horizontal. We can go ahead and set this to be none. Whoa, what just happened there? We want this to be clamped. We'll give it inertia. Scroll sensitivity of, I think, 15 is usually what I would recommend. We don't need horizontal anymore. Scroll bar vertical now has no reason to be offset like that. Our viewport and content, this is where we start having fun. All right, so this is basically going to be the inspector grid. So we're going to go ahead and add a layout, vertical layout group. We're going to add a layout, content size fitter, vertical fit of min size, control all that, and then 15, 15, 10, 10, excuse me, 10. We basically want it to be the same value-wise as that. And then we're just going to move everything below it. Pretty straightforward there. Let's see, the viewport. Yes, the UI mask is what the problem is. So we don't need this image at all. We can remove this. We're going to go ahead and set viewport here is going to also be a, oh man, this is super awkward. I think that will work. So we're also going to make this a, come down to layout. It's been a while since I've done a layout group on a scroll view. We're going to need it doesn't really matter. We're just call it a vertical layout group with no padding and no spacing. Do all that fun stuff. And then we're going to say layout, content size fitter. Preferred size is what we need. And then we're just going to go ahead and move all of these things over to there. So now our content, you'll see, is about a 560. Parent has a type of layout group component. Child of layout group should not have content size fitter components. Layout group. It is super weird to me that they have this warning, considering this is the only way to make a dynamically sizable thing. Anyway, so with that, we can go ahead and get rid of inspector grid. I can just call this content, which I'll call inspector content, I guess. Inspector content. And now, if I wanted to, I could set my scroll bar to be right. Wait, hold on. Timeout. None. 0.2. I thought there was a way to adjust this automatically, but it doesn't seem to want to do that. Really? How curious. It's not. No. That can't be right. Time out. I'm going to play real quick. I'm going to try to drag this. Because in theory, I should be able to. Except it won't. So I think I need it on the scroll view as well, if I recall correctly. And then that can't be right. Hold on. I set this up. So the output is we have our I guess it's our own custom scroll rect. That's curious. All right, so this is the old one. We have a scroll area, which does have a content size fitter, but the output scroll rect itself does not. Viewport is nothing. Output label, it's also nothing. Active section area. Okay, cool. So interesting. Hold on. So clamped, vertical, scroll sensitivity, viewport is this. Right. I remember. So this needs to be anchored up at the top, which you're not going to let me do. Trying to think about how I want to resolve this. So this has a height of 50. Scroll view. That makes no sense. Min size then? Perhaps that's my problem. Nope. Still incorrect. Interesting. So this should be forcing it to expand, but as you can see, it's not, which is problematic. So this is set to min size. That is what we want. This is set to min size. Preferred size should also work, but it's not. I'm guessing that the scroll view is stomping on that, because why not? Oh, excuse me. Problematic. Because we have to be able to scroll here. I suppose there's no reason why the scroll bar has to be underneath this. So I guess I'm going to try that. It's going to be awkward, but we'll do it. So I'm going to move this out of there. Position X, 0, 0, and 0. We're going to give this a scroll view. Oh, geez. The viewport property and the vertical scroll bar property both needs to be set to a rect transform that is child to the right. No, we don't care about that, I guess. That sucks really, really hard, though. Let's go ahead and Control Z this then. Okay. So, what to do about you? So the dilemma here is that I can't have the scroll bar vertical be below the scroll view if I'm going to try to make it a content size fitter object that will scale dynamically. Because if that's the case, then the scroll bar will always kind of not be there because it will basically not need to be. So that's problematic. But really, the viewport growing should be enough to offset that. But the viewport isn't growing, which is the problem. Padding of 0. Horizontal, I guess, is just going to be whatever the min size is. Oh, look at that. You actually did something there. Preferred size, cool. And unconstrained, does this do anything? It does, actually. It gives me a height delta of 50. Which might be all we need. It's just really hard to actually tell where this is going. Okay, so I think this is scaling. It's just really hard to see that. So you can kind of see here we have our ghost lines here. Like that's our solid one, and we select viewport. It does seem to handle that. So that's what our height delta is. It's 50. which kind of makes sense, assuming that our height here is like roughly 510. That would sort of make sense. But then why isn't our scroll bar actually visible? Is the question there. So if we hit play, our scroll bar vanishes into the night, which is not good. Amazing. Our scroll bar does our scroll bar vanish because it doesn't actually offset anything, which is terrible. So yeah, our scroll bar goes away, but our viewport from the right does not actually go away. Wow, what a really annoying thing to deal with. Oh, hello. That's curious. Let's go ahead and turn off maximize on play. So we still have this like unsightly line here to the right. That's where the scroll bar should be. Um, but it's not. Yeah, it's just gone. Well, that's gross. Cool. Cool. I guess the easy thing to do would be to. Well, huh. Great. Well, that's highly vexing. I'm assuming then that scroll view is just going to stomp on whatever I try to do, which means that I have to manually calculate this, which is gross. So I guess that means we're going to do this in a fairly hacky way, which is terrible. So I'm going to set this up to just say, really? Fine, permanent, I guess is what my option is going to be. We're going to go ahead and drag this out and into Node Inspector. We're going to set this to be 0 all around. Position probably like -5, top from 5, and bottom 5. That's probably what we want. All right. So we're going to have that. I'm going to go ahead and set this up actually real quick. We're going to go ahead and say this is going to be navigation none, blah, blah, blah. Instead of background, again, I'm going to use our solid sliced. Okay. Sliding area, which will itself have an image now. Which is going to be, of course, solid sliced. It's going to be like a black. And then our handle is going to be, again, solid sliced. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and say 0, 0, 0, 0 with sliding area. Actually, we might go 5 by 5. Okay, hold on. We're getting dangerously difficult to deal with here. So 0 by 0 by 0 by 0, which means that we just don't have any space. So I'm actually going to change this to like 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 with a handle of, I don't know, 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. We need some amount of offset here. Oof, it's too small. Okay, so we're going to change this to, I'm going to say 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, and then our handle is going to be 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, so we have a little bit more of a black bar there, making it more obvious. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and we're going to set that up, and then we're going to go ahead and let that go, I guess. I'm going to put you over here. Scroll viewport from the right, 0. That's probably going to cause problems for now, but don't worry about it. Main thing is I want to know if this expands. I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess it does not. It doesn't, of course not, because it hates me. Cool. So, curious. So let's scroll. I'm curious as to why. Oh, that's why. Okay. Basically, my SOS scroll rect just canceled inertia whenever it reached the end or you clicked and dragged on it. That's not actually useful. Although I guess I might as well make it a scroll rect like that, but okay, so for this, we're gonna want guess I'm not entirely sure why it doesn't think that it's expanding. That must mean that our viewport is not properly sizing, which is a problem. Um, that means, so clamped should be fine, with inertia should be fine. Our problem, I think, is this viewport inspector content stuff. I don't think that we're getting anything useful out of this. Um, Let's debug this. Does this actually tell me anything useful? Like, is there a value I can set? Not really. View bounds. Here we go. Previous content bounds, previous view bounds, previous position. The view rect. Ah, I might have just been silly. So I might not actually need these two things. If that's the case, that would explain why things are kind of borked, but maybe not. Let's go ahead and I might actually have to. Yeah, so these are still borked. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these real quick. There we go. Yep, I was being silly, and by silly I mean stupid. It makes sense that the viewport shouldn't expand because the viewport is what handles the scroll bar. So cool. That means I can put this back. We can still have a offset of -5 though, and that gives me auto hide and expand with a viewport of, you gotta be kidding me. Fine, permanent. Set you to be. Are you serious? Hold on. Oh, right. There we go. We gotta set you up with anchors 0 to 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, offset of 0. Fine, whatever. All right, there we go. And then we're gonna be able to go ahead and turn you on to auto hide and expand viewport. Now, if I wanted to, I can scroll this like that. There we go. It has been a while since I've set up expansion for a scroll view with a slider. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove these components real quick. We're going to add on float field, boop, and float range field. Oops, float range field. Okay, so let's go ahead and associate both of those. Boom and boom. And then boom, boom, and boom. All right. Oh, oh dear. That field is too small. Because if it was anything like I would expect, it would actually be something like 100.00, like that. Which is obviously not what it is. Width of 100 maybe. Terrible. Float. Put field. Float. Field. So you're good like that. Although actually I should probably change you to like 100.00. So I want to be able to handle 6 characters, I guess, which means that this has to go to like 125, I'm going to assume, which bumps this down to like 135. Eesh. But yeah, that does actually handle that. That's not great. I don't like having inconsistencies between these two, which means I'm going to have to bump that up for the int one. All right, idea. We're going to go ahead and open up all of these. Grab our values, and we're going to offset this just by 25 instead. We still get the indent, but it's much, much, much more palatable. for these things. So now I can come over to the input field here. We don't need it for the full one. We only need it for you. So we can make this, what was it, 125? Make this 135. Oops, wrong thing. 135. There we are. All right, so that looks better. I'm still not super ecstatic about that, but you know, it's functional, I suppose. So let's go ahead and we're gonna collapse all this fun stuff. We should be able to make these into. Oh wait, no, actually I need some validations set up on my input fields first. And before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate the last float field. I'm gonna rename the string field. Okay. Then we're going to say, grab this. Grab this is going to be our string input field. Let's get rid of you. Go ahead and add our next one. So CG underscore node string field. Okay. We will give that a second. Should it choose? All right, so there's going to be under textquest.custom adventures with using Unity engine. Actually, nope, we're just going to be using sleepyowl.common and using TM Pro. This is going to derive from CG underscore, wow, I can't type, CG underscore node field. We're going to go ahead and say node field for, we're just going to say for string values, pretty basic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go down to here. I'm going to grab this, come over to here, paste this in. These can just be private now, not protected. Private. There we go. They don't need to be virtual either. Just go ahead and do this. And private string value is equal to nothing. Get rid of you on input changed. Stop value, all pretty straightforward. We can actually send you off as just a value. We don't need to call .toString on this. We can just call that. All right, pretty straightforward. That's all we really needed for that. So let's go ahead and let that compile. And let's set up our validations on our input fields for ints and floats. So for floats, we're probably going to want, let's see here. Oh, shoot, I guess I should also make these 24, because that's what they are. Oh, and it's compiling. Well, while it's compiling, I'm going to take a drink. Yeah, it did that fun thing where I started working on something, and then it's like, oh wait, no, I'm at the last couple of seconds of compiling. I'm going to freeze Unity for you. It's like, great, thanks for that. All right, so we want to change this content type from standard to a decimal number. That will prevent users from typing, say, like alpha or like any letters into this input field. It'll only work with numerals and decimals. So we're going to go with that. That's pretty good. I believe we want, just make sure I'm correct here, 24-point font size. So let's go ahead and set that up for these as well. 24. Our ints are going to be integer numbers, not decimal numbers. So no spacebar, no decimal numbers, just pure numbers. And that is pretty much all we needed for that. Int slider is set to use whole numbers. This slider, which is our float, we're going to rename this float slider. That is not going to use whole numbers. It's going to use just that. It would be nice if I could actually clamp it to specific increments. I think I actually wrote a custom script for that at work, but not at home, so at least I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I have slider in here. Custom slider, nope. Fmod slider, options slider. Okay, so yeah, I don't actually have that at home. That's something I wrote it at work. All right, so I think these are more or less ready to go. Let's go ahead and assign our string stuff real quick. String field, label, and string input field. All right, so these should be good to make into prefabs. So let's go ahead and come up to node inspector. Let's actually go to logic panel. Where are you? Go ahead and create folder. These are going to be node inspector fields. Drag these all. Oh, I guess you can't do that multiple. I thought you used to be able to do that. Maybe not. Okay, fine. Do. All right, and all right. Okay, so for all of these, I'm just going to give them an arbitrary size of what? So 300 by 100, that seems good. I always try to give UI elements arbitrary sizes when I drag them uh, into be prefabs, because that way if I have to edit them at a later date, I can drag them in and they're not going to be just 0, 0 sized. All right, so those are our various fields. Let's go ahead and delete them. Then we're going to go up to node inspector, and I'm going to, I guess, make this a thing. And there we go. So we're just going to drag, or add this. I'm going to open this script up. All right. So we're going to go ahead and say the canvas group to set alpha on to show or hide inspector. Okay, then we're going to do a couple of things here. So we're going to say serialize field. This is actually not quite good enough here. So I need some way of associating the fields with specific field IDs or types. So let's go ahead. I don't want to go right back because all I did was change the tooltip and I already saved, which is going to break everything. It's going to force a recompile, and I don't want to do that. So let's I guess make this somewhat useful. We're going to go ahead and add, say, serialize field, tooltip, blah, blah, blah. We're going to say private scroll rect scroll area is equal to null. Serialize field, private. I guess we don't need the reference to the scroll bar because we can just set that up on the scroll area itself. We're going to go ahead and say using system.collections because we need to have a coroutine run whenever this is opened. So we're going to go ahead and say public void show. You know, actually, I guess I don't need to have a coroutine. Well, yeah, right. So we're going to say show, and that's going to need to take some sort of parameters at some point. I think we're going to basically say JSON array. So we'll do something like JSON array fields JSON, I guess. Are we, let's go ahead and find all references here. We're not referencing this yet, are we? Yeah. So we're going to go over to nothing, apparently. Harumph. We're going to need a couple of other functions then. Public void hide. We're just going to kind of handle some of this real quick. Serialize field, tooltip, private, float, fade in duration is equal to, I don't know, 1f, serialize field, tooltip, private, float, fade out, duration is equal to 0.5f. How long it takes for the canvas group hiding the inspector. Copy that. Paste that in. For the canvas group to fade in when showing the inspector. We're going to come down to here. We're going to say private void. That's not going to be a void either. It's going to be enumerator. We'll just call this fade coroutine. We're going to say float alpha is equal to canvas group dot alpha. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and say float start alpha, float end alpha, I guess is what we're going to want to do there. And duration, yeah, float duration. Okay, and for that, we're just going to say t is equal to the alpha that we're currently at, and then we're going to say while t is less than 1f, I guess. We're going to say t plus equals time dot delta time divided by duration. And then we're going to say yield return null. And we're just going to say canvas group dot alpha is equal to t. Pretty straightforward there. I don't know if I want to do a curve on that or not. I might as well. So we're going to go ahead and say header fading. Say serialized field tooltip curve to evaluate canvas group alpha along. We're just going to say private animation curve. Fade curve is equal to animation curve dot ease in out 0f 0f 1f 1f. Okay, that's a standard easing curve. So we have easing coming in and easing going out, which means that instead of having our fade happen linearly from 0 to 1, we're actually going to get a little bit of easing on the ends to make it just look a little bit nicer. So that's a really nice, easy trick to do if you're ever doing any sort of crossfading. And it works on almost anything, like colors, sound, values, like almost everything looks and feels better with a curve applied to it. Even if the curve is just very subtle, it's a very nice little touch. Okay, and at the end of the day, once we're done with that, we're just going to go ahead and say canvas group dot alpha is equal to end alpha. That's all we really got to do there. And so for show, we're going to do a to-do here. So to-do populate fields. Oops. And then once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and say start coroutine, fade coroutine. And we're going to give it a start alpha of 0, an end alpha of 1, and a duration of fade in duration. And then we're basically going to do the opposite down in hide. And we're just going to say 1f to start, 0f for the target, and fade out duration. All right, so for that, we're going to go ahead and go back to my project to let that compile. And now I have to find some way of associating field values with fields, or field value types with fields. So I think I'm going to need, of course it's compiled. So let's go to, I think it's going to be cg underscore logic behavior. Is that what I called it? Yes. Okay. So this should have a logic value which has a logic param type. That's what I wanted. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. So that's compiling now. I'm going to, I guess, make it here. We're going to say create C# script cg node field data. And then create C# script underscore node field data collection. So the node field data is just going to contain an array of basically a class. Well, no, I'm sorry. So the node field data is just a class that has a reference to that enum and then the field prefab. That's all it's going to be. So we're going to get rid of this. We're going to make this system.serializable. Say public field type is equal to, oh, right, you're going to throw a tantrum. Textworks.custom adventures is equal to this dot none. And then we're also going to need a public CG node field prefab, I guess. Field prefab is equal to null. Okay, and for this, do I want to do that? Yeah, sure, why not? So I'll go ahead and add a header to this. I'm not a header, sorry, tooltip. This is going to be the type of value used. Well, the type of value this field is used for. Blah. Terrible name, or terrible description, but I can't really think of a better one. Then we're going to say the prefab to spawn for this field value type. Okay. Get rid of that line. Just give it a comment so I don't forget what this does. Class containing data associating field value types with field prefabs. There we go. And now I can go over to CG node field data collection. Open that up. Open you up. There we go. It's going to be in textquest.custom-adventures again. It is going to be a scriptable object, and we're going to go ahead and call this. So we're going to say public CG underscore node field data. We're just going to call this fields is equal to new. Okay, and then we're going to need to do a couple of things. First, we're going to say a create asset menu tag. File name is equal to this. Menu name is equal to this. Okay, and for this, we're going to say menu name is equal to sos/textquest/custom crap. So I guess we're going to do this real quick because I don't actually remember what I did for this. Oh, you know what? Actually, I can just go ahead and do this. Logic behavior, final references. Just copy this and adjust it as we see fit. Custom game, logic, behaviors. So this is going to be logic, behaviors, fields, I guess. Well, no. Game, logic, fields is what I'll do there. And we'll just say field data. We're just going to call this custom logic fields with a lowercase f, no, capital. Okay, get rid of you. All right, then we're going to be able to come down here. We're just going to say public. I guess I really only care about the prefab, so I'm going to say field, node field, and we're just going to say get field prefab with a, I forget what it was, CG logic param type. Yeah. Type. I'm going to return null at the very end. We're just going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than fields dot length I plus plus and then we're just going to say if fields of I dot field type, of course, dot field type is equal to type. Then we're just going to return fields of I dot field prefab, which I guess we can actually shorten into one line if. There we go. And that's all we really need from this class. So I can probably, Yeah, I'm going to do it just because I like having nice inspectors. Um, so we're going to jump up to close you, close you, close you, close you, and you, and you, and you're all that stuff. So let's go to editor, scripts, and it's compiling again. hmm. All right, there we go. So we need content creation, I think is where it is. Yeah, content creation, logic, behaviors, core. Wow, there's so much here. So content creation, logic, behaviors, core, and then after that, I need map, node inspector, and fields. Okay. Folder, map, node, inspector, and I guess fields. Okay. Fields. I hate having so many nested folders. And I'm just going to call it cg underscore node field data drawer. That was just called map, right? Not logic map. All right. Create C# script. So cg underscore node field data. Oops. Field data drawer. I just like having custom inspectors. Okay. And before I go any farther, I will go ahead and right-click create SOS text quest custom game logic fields field data. If only so that people can see what it looks like by default. So like that's basically what it looks like by default. We have our field type and our field prefabs, but it's kind of hard to see what it is because everything's just called element 0 or element 1. It is compiling again, so I'm going to take a drink real quick. Ah, oh, you beat me, Unity. I thought it was going to take longer than that. So I'm just going to make a custom inspector for this that'll just wrap everything up and make it very obvious what it is while everything's collapsed, what the field type is. Makes it a little bit easier for me to look at later. Plus, I just like having custom editors like that because, you know, why not? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open this up. Come back down to here. I'm going to select this so that we can easily see it change. We're going to have this be under text quest dot custom adventures. This is going to be using Unity editor, using sleepyowl.common editor, and we're going to make this a SOS property drawer, custom property drawer type, type of, and then cg underscore node field data. Okay, override, get property height, override on GUI, get rid of you. This is going to be pretty simple. So float height is equal to u. I'll say return height. You know, I really should look into seeing if I can inject my own custom templates for these classes, because it would be really nice if instead of having a generic C# class that I use for these, I had like a custom property drawer class that I could, or a script template that I could use. That would be interesting. I wonder if I can just add those to the list of, or to like the folder with the other ones, and if they would be used, because if that's the case, that's actually really awesome. Well, I'll have to look into that. Anyway, so after that, we're going to say if property dot find is expanded. We're going to do height times equals 3f, and we're going to say height plus equals editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing. We're going to say times 3f, I believe, is what we want there. And then we're going to copy this, come down here, paste it in, and we're going to say times 2f. All right, and now we're going to say editor GUI, editor GUI dot label field. We're going to give it the total position with a GUI content of but a GUI content of none, dot none, and an editor style of the help box. That's what gives us our nice little bounding box area. Then we're going to say position dot set followed by position dot x, position dot y plus editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing followed by position dot height. Oops, sorry, width dot width, and then editor GUI utility dot single line height. Then we're going to say editor GUI dot indent field or indent level plus plus. Let's copy that. Minus minus. Say property dot is expanded is equal to editor GUI dot fold out with position and property dot is expanded followed by our label and then true so that we can click anywhere. We need to follow this up with label.text. I'm sorry, no, not that. Set label, ref label. That's a custom function that handles grabbing tooltips from Unity because Unity's custom fields can't detect tooltip attributes, which is very strange. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and say label.text is equal to, and this is where it gets fun. We're going to need to cast, what was it? CG underscore, not bool value. It's like so CG underscore type. Let's see if we can get it. Logic param type. Yep. We're gonna have to wrap this. This is gonna be like a very awkward title. And we're gonna say that plus property dot find property relative blah 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 dot int value dot toString. Terrible, I know, but that's what it is. So we're going to say field type because I believe that's what it was. That's all good. And then we're going to come down here and say if property is expanded, blah, blah, blah. Then we're going to say position.set, position.x plus editor GUI utility. Oops, can't type today. Editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing. And then we're going to say position.y plus position.height plus editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing. Then we're going to say position.width minus, but you can't guess, editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing times 2f, and then followed by position.height. Blah. Okay, so with that we can now say editor GUI dot property field followed by position and property dot find property relative blah blah blah, and then we're just going to say field type followed up by position dot y plus equals position dot height plus editor GUI utility dot standard vertical spacing, and then editor GUI dot property field. Can't type today. Property field position and property dot find property relative and field prefab. Okay, so this is going to draw our field type field. This is going to draw our field prefab field, and all this really does, I'll let this compile. You'll see that instead of having this very rough drop down that has element 0, which doesn't really tell you what's underneath it, now we're going to have a nice bounding box over everything, and we will also have a label that tells us immediately what our field type is here, so we can easily identify this while everything's collapsed. So let's see, we have so we have 6 fields, I think, right now. So the benefit here is that once all of these are set, I'll be able to easily reference them without having to expand them all and guess which one is which. So this is going to be our, oh crap, right, I don't have a good method of doing that. So let's go over to here real quick. And we're going to change this up. Am I using you anywhere important? Excuse me. Sorry, I did not get to the mute button in time. Well, that's terrible. Apologize for sneezing into everyone's ears. So let's see here. Field node, logic value, logic behavior. That's fine. We're not doing anything with that yet. Okay, good. So we're not actually using it anywhere yet, so I can redo these. in a more intelligent way. Okay, so for this, I'm going to go ahead and just say variable should be bumped up to 20, interactive object should be bumped up to that, and item should be bumped up to that. That should handle everything that we need. So I'm going to make integer, I'm going to say integer underscore range is equal to 8. And then we're going to say float underscore range is equal to 10. I'm going to make this 9. Right, you're going to complain. Okay, so let's go ahead and indent to these. I like to try and indent my sections to the same level. Okay. So with that, we can now come back to here. We can start setting our values. So this is going to be string, this is going to be Boolean, this is going to be integer, this one's going to be float. Here's our bool field. Which I dropped like right as it was finished compiling. Always fun. All right. So let's go ahead and drag in. We're going to make this an integer range, float range. Okay, so there's our. Did I miscount? Oh, it's because I made that up. Right, you're a float. Sorry. There's our float field, float range. Come on, work with me here. Float range field, and field, and string field. Okay, so string, bool, int range, float, and float range. So now I can collapse all these, and it's very nice and easy to look at. So with that, we can now go over here to our node inspector, which I, of course, do not have assigned yet. So we're going to get rid of you, get rid of, let's go ahead and comment this, class associating, centralized class associating node fields with their field type. Okay. Let's get rid of you, get rid of you. Okay. And then we're going to need header fields. We're going to say serialized field, tooltip, blah, 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 private, CG node field data collection, field data is equal to null, and then that's, I guess, actually all we need. So I guess I can just call that fields. And then we're going to say data for various, for the various fields that can be displayed. Okay. And from here, we now need to go to actually our behavior, which of course I closed. We can close all of these fields as well. Node string field, node range, bool, node field. Okay. Then we're going to go to CG node, logic behavior. Logic behavior. Because this should have a JSON blob. So our fields JSON. Yes. Okay. So for our fields JSON, we're going to just have type, name, and a value, I believe. Yep. All right. So let's type, name, and a value for each thing. We're going to go ahead and have a colon here. So type, name, and value. Those are the three values that are going to be in our JSON blob. And then we're going to go ahead and say, I'm going to come down to here. I'm going to say private void populate fields, I guess. That's going to take our JSON array. JSON array. That's going to be our fields JSON. Or not field JSON, fields JSON. And for this, we're going to need to basically parse that out, which is, going to suck. I hate parsing everything live, but we have to. So it's not very performant, but won't be too bad at least. Okay, so for this we need to basically say for int I equals 0, I is less than fields JSON dot count I plus plus, and then we're going to say fields JSON of type. Yep, type is what we need, which is going to give us an int value, I guess, which sucks. Okay, so we need to cast that as an int and then cast it as a CG param type, and then we're going to say CG param type is equal to that. Wow, that's terrible. Oh, right. Sorry, this is field JSON of I, and then we have to wrap all of that in a JSON object cast. And that should actually let us access it properly. Bleh. What a terrible, terrible setup. I guess that's the problem with working with data-based workflows, is that it's just way, way too casty, for lack of a better term. Okay, so we have our type. That's going to let us actually grab our field. So we'll be able to say, we're going to want, I guess, to just call. So we'll need to say CG node field. Field is equal to pool manager dot request followed by fields dot get field prefab and type, and we're going to parent that to our rect transform, which I need to set up. So we're going to say serialized field tooltip private rect transform, and this is going to be fields parent is equal to null. This is going to be rect transform to parent fields node fields 2. Okay, this is going to be nodes parent fields parent. There we go. And once we do that, we're also going to go ahead and say field.initialize and I followed by fields JSON dot not dot at I as JSON object. So with that, I think we're gonna be okay. We're gonna need to say private void on field value changed, and this is gonna take an int index followed by an object value, which is a bit awkward. Because, oh dear, yes. Let me think. How do I want to handle this? So we get passed in our JSON value, which is probably okay. But, hold on, let's see where this gets passed out to. That gets passed to the logic map, which is passed to the node. And the individual node... No, that's actually fine. Okay. So we're going to come back to here. So I was worried that I didn't want to modify the original JSON value, but actually I think I do. So that means I'm going to go ahead and come down here. I'm going to say private JSON array field JSON is equal to null, I guess. Or no, we'll say is equal to new JSON array. And then we're going to go ahead and say this dot field JSON is equal to fields JSON. And then we're going to just say populate fields with fields JSON. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and say field.on value changed add listener on field value changed. Okay. Pretty straightforward there. Did I not serialize that? Because I don't remember seeing it. Huh. That's curious. All right. Let's go ahead and let that compile. And actually, did I do that wrong then? I totally did. Okay. I'm pretty sure I need this to be system.serializable. I was wondering why it was kind of weird. Okay, so let's go ahead. It doesn't really matter because these are not exactly meant to be used in the inspector, but still. Okay, so on field value change, this is where it gets interesting. We're going to call field JSON dot, I'm sorry, of index dot, or not dot. So we're going to wrap that as JSON object. And then we're going to give it a value field is equal to value. Oof. Oh, are you going to call... Shoot. I was hoping it would just handle it. Oh, that sucks really hard. I guess that makes sense because it's an object, so it doesn't know what value it should be. Well, it's a little awkward, so I guess we'll do it like... Oh, man, that's just gross. Fine. Hold on, let me think. No. No, that would be too confusing. Gross. Cool, so I have to do it like this. If value is int, then we're going to do that. We're going to cast it to an int. Else, if value is float, we're going to cast it to a float. And now I can just do this. Else. If value is bool and value is string. This is terrible. This is going to cast to a bool. This is going to cast to a string. At the end of the day, those are really the only four types that we use, because even complex things like behavior references and object references will be using, excuse me, unique, excuse me again, either string or int values, even though they represent more complicated values. So I guess we can just do that. It's a little gross, but it'll work. All right. And the only real thing that I need after this is, I guess we're just going to do this. We're going to say yield return null. And then I'm going to go ahead and say scroll area dot normalized vertical position is equal to 1f, I think. 1f is the top, I believe. Yep. So we want to go up to 1. So that should basically be everything that we need for the logic node inspector. So that means that once we have our logic behavior, we're going to find where this is being referenced. Let's come back over to here. Node dot initialize. We're going to say on behavior selected. Node is equal to this. Wait, do I not handle click? Oh, I bet it's handling it directly, isn't it? Yep. Why would I do it like that? Because it's draggable. Gross. Cool, so I need to make that into an event. Awesome. So let's do that real quick. We're going to come up here and say, instead of using Unity UI, I guess, we're going to say using Unity.events. And we're going to say system.serializable, followed by public class node event, which will derive from Unity event. And that will take nothing back, I suppose. So it's just going to be like that. which we can probably put on one line like we did before. Pretty straightforward. Then we're just going to come down to here. We're going to say serialize field, private m on node clicked, I guess, is equal to new. Oops, completely forgot to say what it was. Is equal to new node event. And then we get the fun thing where we say down here, public on, oops, I keep forgetting to say node event. I don't know what's been up with me recently, but for some reason I keep forgetting to type the actual type of the thing I'm trying to declare. It's been messing with me at work too. I don't know why I'm doing that. On node clicked, capital C, clicked. This is going to say get return m on node clicked, and we're just going to say set m on node clicked is equal to value. Okay. Then we can go up to, where are you? Logic node inspector. No, I guess we want it here. So I'm going to go ahead and say node.on node click. Actually, no, I guess I could have called it just like on click. But whatever. Dot add listener. Null for now. And for this, I guess I don't want to. Well, no, I guess it should probably return the GUID, because I need to be able to retrieve the fields for it, which GUID would not be good enough actually, because I need to populate data. What can I do there? I could take JSON, I guess. That's kind of rough though. Because this doesn't really store its JSON value. It just initializes it. Field array. Fields. Definition. Type. Logic value. Name of the value field. Oh, shoot. Right. That's. Okay. So. I guess there's no real reason for me to have this other than logic fields. I guess that could work. I don't know. I don't really want to do that. Perhaps I should return. What do I have access to? I guess we have the label. We have the GUID for the behavior. That would kind of work. No. Let me think about this. I probably should store these fields, I guess. Okay. I have an idea. I'm going to go to logic value, which originally I believe I was going to have a bunch of classes derived from that, but I can't really do that. So instead, I need to make this an arbitrary class that can handle pretty much anything. So we're going to go ahead and say public object value is equal to null, which I know is not going to really go over well. And with, well, so I don't really want to handle values explicitly. So I guess I could use the raw value there, which would make sense. That's why we have it. So let's do this. We're going to say if JSON.contains key value, then I'm going to go ahead and say this dot raw value is equal to, I'm not sure what's going to happen here actually. JSON of value. I don't think it can cast in that situation. Or maybe it will, but I don't know what it's going to try to cast to. So I should probably do like raw value, honestly, to streamline that to make sure that it doesn't do anything silly. Uh, okay, so that will handle initializing our values, but we still need to find a way to translate these. So I guess that means that I want to come over to here, logic node. So these fields do get populated, and for us to grab that, we want to return those logic values, I suppose. Um, I am not crazy about that. I'm really not. I don't want to expose that publicly. I would prefer it to be private. But I kind of need to access it, so I guess we're going to do that. Um, okay, so that means that the node will maintain its reference to its particular fields, but we need some way of translating that field data that it's loaded into fields that can be shown. So, okay, idea. We're going to go to, let's see, logic behavior, logic node inspector. When we call show, maybe we don't actually want it to be an arbitrary JSON array. What if we do something like this? Public void show, and it's going to take a list, which of course I don't have collections generic in here. So using system.collections.generic, generic, not generical. There's going to be a list of field, what was it, field, or logic values, that's what it was. All right, yep, logic value. So logic value, which is somewhere around here, CV logic value. These will be our values, I suppose. Okay, and that means we're going to have a list. See, here's where no, that's where it gets messy because I don't want to keep passing around lists. I would prefer to just be able to reference them and set them directly. Fine. Okay, so that means we're going to come down to here. I have to make this public. So gross, but I don't want you to be serialized. So public. Oh yeah, that means I get it. Ah, this just messes with my code flow. All right, fine. I'm going to put it down here because that's kind of where it should go. So this is going to be non-serializable. Or, well, I want to say hide an inspector. Actually, our CG logic values, are those even serializable? I guess, but there's no real reason for them to be. Fine, read only. That's what we'll mark it as. It's gross. I hate it. I don't want it to be like that, but that's what it's got to be, apparently. So we're going to come up to here. We're going to paste it there. And then that lets us go over to logic node inspector. Instead of the actual list of values, I can just straight up pass CG logic node, the node, and then we're just going to be able to say we're going to have to populate fields based on that. So let's go ahead and pass that in. I'm going to say private void populate fields. Oh, and I almost forgot private void clean up fields because we're going to need that totally. So clean up fields at the very start. We're going to call clean up fields here. All right, and this is going to take a CG node or logic node underscore. Wow, that worked out very well. Node. And then I guess that means that we're actually going to want to keep a reference to this. So we're just going to say private CG logic node target node is equal to null. That means we can do target node is equal to node, which means that we don't actually need to call populate fields with this. We can just call populate fields. So then we can say populate fields, do that. Go ahead and start you. All right, so for this, we're just going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than target node dot fields dot count I plus plus. And here is where things are going to get fun, actually. So we don't need to cast anymore. I can actually just get rid of that. And we can say this is going to be equal to target node dot fields of I dot type, I think. Yep. And then we can do this. Crud. Right. All right, let's go over to here real quick. I'm also going to add a public virtual void initialize index with a CG logic value, and that's just going to say field index is equal to index followed by label.text is equal to value.name, which is what I believe it is. Yes. Okay, and that means we're going to have to do an override similar to that for everything. So I'm going to need to do that, which means that I can just go ahead and pass in target node of I, dot fields of I. Okay, and that's pretty much all we need to do here. Let's go ahead and find all references to this. I'm going to override those real quick. Node bool field, I'm going to say override initialize, say value is equal to bool value dot raw value, I guess. That's what we want. We're going to say this dot value is equal to that. And we're going to say toggle dot is on is equal to this dot value. Okay. We're going to go ahead and go to, I guess I can probably copy that for the most part. Float field, we're going to come down here. This dot value is equal to float value dot raw value. Go ahead and grab this is equal to this dot value, not to string. Let's go ahead and copy this. And then node string field. Actually, we'll come down to node int field. Initialize. That's all fine. Cast that to an int. Cast that to an int. Okay, that's all good. Actually, do I want you to be... Okay, so this is going to be... I guess that's what I kind of did. Let's go back here to the string field. Paste you in. We're going to say this is equal to string value.raw value. We don't need to worry about that. Field.text. Okay, so the string field's done and the bool one is done. The only ones we have left are the ranges. So let's go ahead and find all references here. Paste this, initialize, override, initialize, and then we're going to say base.index, and then float slider dot value is equal to value dot raw value. We're going to cast that to a float. Go ahead and copy this, and then we're just going to get rid of you, come back over to here, find all references, paste you, make this an int, and make this an int slider dot value is equal to that. Okay, so that handles that. Let's go ahead and close this. We're going to go over to our logic value, logic map, logic node, logic behavior, logic node inspector. We have our initialization field I populate on value changed, on value changed. I guess I'll call this on JSON field value changed. And then I'm going to come down to here and say it's pretty much going to be the same thing, admittedly. But instead of on JSON, it's just going to be on field value changed. And this is where it gets different. We're going to say target node dot fields of index is equal to, or dot raw value is equal to that. Which actually, now that I think about it, means that I can just do this. I don't even need all of that if-else checks. I can just paste that in, and I don't even have to cast it. I can just say is equal to the value. And that should work. Okay. So with that, oh boy, this is going to get super awkward. Let's go ahead and go down to logic value. When I call to JSON, I'm casting you to a string. I do not care for that. So that wouldn't work anyway. Okay. That really complicates things, but we'll see. All right. Real quick, let's go over to logic node inspector, which actually for that we want to go to logic node. On node clicked, where are you being referenced? Let's go over here. So I need to pass in a reference to the node, I suppose. So we're just going to go ahead and say delegate. And then I'm going to come down to here. I'm just going to say private void on node clicked. It's going to take in a cg underscore logic node. And we're just going to say on node clicked, passing in our node. And then we're going to come up here to our top here. List keys, collections, map supports, node prefab. Let me think. So for this, we're going to go ahead and say tooltip parent list parent node prefab. I guess it goes here roughly. It's a little awkward. Serialized field tooltip. I'm going to say private CG node inspector. There we go. Logic node inspector. Node inspector is equal to null. The inspector to show when node values. Okay. So when we click on a node, I'm going to go ahead and call node inspector dot show with the node, and that's pretty much all I'm going to do for now. So that should, in theory, handle all of our wonderful prefabs and all the relevant fields, and yeah. So let's try a basic come up to node inspector. So we're going to try a basic int const field, like a constant integer value, and we'll see if it shows up. That's pretty much all I can think of to make it work. So let's go ahead and bring up view. There's our scroll rect. There's our content. Here's our field data. Okay. I'm going to go up to our logic panel, which will now have a reference to our node inspector, which we will set to have 0 alpha initially. And I think that's all we're really going to need. It's a little awkward, but I think that's correct. So for logic behavior, this get nodes field JSON input fields, which is, yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, let's go ahead and let that compile. I'm going to select, let's go to my logic panel, in-game, const int. So the name is value and the type is an integer. Sure, let's try that. Get bool, these are target variable. These are actually going to be variable fields. Oh, right, you're all different things technically. Variable, variable. We're gonna go ahead and let that go. Oh man, I should probably specify that as like int variable or something. Otherwise, it's gonna be super awkward. But in theory, I think this will work. Oh shoot, no! Before I forget, I need to have cleanup fields actually do something. So that's gonna go for int I equals 0, I is less than, because I actually don't have a list for these yet, do I? Nope. Okay, so we're going to come down to here. I'm going to say private list CG field, or node field. We're just going to call these like fields is equal to new, blah, blah, blah. And then all we're going to do, fields is, right. So we're going to say spawn fields, I guess. Okay. Then we're going to come down to here. We're going to say spawned fields dot add field less than spawned fields dot count I plus plus do. And then we're going to say at the very bottom here spawned fields dot clear spawned fields of I dot on value change dot remove all listeners pool manager pool manager dot recycle field dot game object not field JSON spawned fields of I dot game object which actually let's make sure that this is it's a rect mono behavior. That's good. Okay, that's pretty much all we needed for that. And let's go to how should I handle this actually? That's fine. Well, you know what? No, let's do this. So in my fade coroutine, I'm going to go ahead and take an optional callback. So system dot action callback is equal to null. And then I can just go ahead and say if callback does not equal null, callback dot invoke. That way I can come up to here, and when we hide, I can actually pass in clean up fields. That way the fields will automatically be recycled once it fades out. Of course, I don't actually have anything fading out right now, but you know, baby steps. Okay. So in theory, all of this should work. I'm hoping. And once we have that working, we're probably going to call it a day there. I have been rambling a bunch about very generic information today. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit play. Let's try this. In-game, integer. I see. Oh, duh. Because I didn't do that correctly. Let me go back to the logic node. I have the on node clicked, but I haven't invoked it. I guess I can probably do like m on node clicked dot invoke. Of course, that was me being quite silly. Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. I do have this spawning that and actually setting that up, right? Yes. Yes, okay. Let's try that one more time. If it will let me. integer. Oh, null reference. Right, right. That's what I forgot about that. I thought about it as I was coding it, but I didn't do anything about it. So raw value, because it's a getter, not a, well, even if it was an actual object, actually, it would still be null. Problem is that until this value is set in the inspector, it's just null, which means that we need to actually do this. Value.raw value is equal to null, question mark. If so, we're going to initialize with a value of 0. Otherwise, we will initialize with that. We have to do that with everything. So I'm going to go ahead and basically copy this. And let's go to node float field. Oh, that's everywhere too. No, it's just that. That's fine. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say 0f. Let's go ahead and I don't remember if our child classes had that problem. They do. So we're going to do this 0f. Collapse you over to here. Find all references. Boop. Grab you. Okay. Doing pretty well so far. Let's grab all of our individual node fields. Find all references. So we have node bool field. We are just going to check. If that's the case, it's going to be false. Okay, and node string field. We're just going to check, and then if that's the case, we're going to say it's equal to nothing. All right, let's try that again. And while that's happening, I'm going to take a drink. All right. You can do it, Unity. There we go. Clear that. Hit play. Right-click in game. Integer. Nice. 100. Ooh. Wait, what? How's that even happening? It should be clearing them every time I click on it. Let's go over here to logic node inspector. Populate fields, we call clear fields. Remove our listeners, we recycle them, and we clear them. Right there, I totally forgot to add them. Alright, that makes sense. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to also, just so that I can do it real quick, we're going to need... Where are you? Behaviors. No. Give me a second here. I want to set another thing that's going to have an easy field for me to access. So I'm going to add a const bool, I suppose. Actually, let's just do const float. That'll be a little bit more useful. So we're going to come up to here. Oh, look, I have a const bool already. All right. If I got a constant bool, I might as well use it. We're going to come down here, create, SOS, text quest, custom game, logic, behaviors, consts, and bool. We're just going to add that to our list of behaviors, and let's set up our particular values, grab GUIDs. This is just going to be a boolean, I guess. Create a constant bool value. We're probably almost never going to need this particular thing, but it's good to have. So I can test at least. We're going to set this up to be value, I guess, and the type is going to be a boolean. Okay, let's try this again. Everything should spawn in. When I click on bool, it should show the bool value. When I click on int, it should show the stored int value, I believe. We'll find out. In game, integer. There's our int. I set you to be 100. Okay. Okay. Clicking on it multiple times doesn't pop it up like that. Boolean. Yes! It's 100. Let's create a new integer. Yes! Awesome. It's storing the values as we would expect. Cool. So we don't have long-term storage working, obviously, because we don't actually have the serializing yet. But we do have individual values that can be initialized and stored locally. And that means that we can store them long-term and then reload them. So that's really exciting for me. So we now have a way of actually driving values via an inspector. I probably should have like a little close button up here or something like that to make it go away. But yeah, that's really, really cool. That is really awesome, actually. Before I do anything else, I am going to add one more thing. So we're going to go to node field, go to definition, and I'm going to add a public function. It's going to be public void set interactive bool interactive, and then I guess that's going to be virtual actually, virtual void, and we're just going to say this is abstract actually, so that's going to take an abstract thing. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and say in our bool field, int fields, float fields, and string fields. Cool, we need all that fun stuff. So we're going to come over here and I'm going to say override set interactive. And all I'm going to do here is say input field dot interactable is equal to interactive. We're going to pretty much grab that, copy that, paste that down here. We're going to come down to node bool field. It's going to be toggle not interactable is equal to that. Let's go ahead and come down here. Input field. And then we need to do that for our various child classes as well. So we're just going to call override set interactive. We're going to call base, and then we're also going to say int slider dot interactable is equal to interactive. Okay. Go ahead and copy. We'll just copy the whole thing, honestly. Yeah, we'll just copy the whole thing up to there too. Let's go over to node float field. All references. Basically, what I'm doing is when I show the fields, I want to set them to be interactable, and when I hide them, I want to set them to not be interactable, because there is a slight delay in, since we're doing that lerp to hide the field, since it doesn't go away instantly, it's possible that players could accidentally drag a slider or set a value. So I'm just going to say when you hit the X button on the inspector, it's just going to immediately hide or set everything to not be interactable, so that we don't have to worry about that. Node float field, node inspector, and we're just going to go ahead and say fields fading. I guess this means that I do actually need a serialized field, private button, closed button is equal to null. Come down to here. We're just going to say private void on close clicked. We're just going to call hide. And that is, we're going to come down to here, private void start. Close button dot on click dot add listener on close clicked. For this, all we really need to do is, I don't know if I want to somehow set spawn fields. Actually, yeah, we are using spawn fields. Target node though should probably be set to null when we call hide. Which means that I probably want to do something like this. Private void cleanup. So I'm just going to change this to cleanup, which will itself call cleanup fields, and then we'll say target node is equal to null. That way we don't have to worry about getting a stored reference or something like that. Oh, and I should stop playing. Okay, so node inspector, I'm going to set this to 1 real quick. Oh, right. You. Oh, that complicates things. Right. Cool. All right, well, then we'll probably end it there for the day because I think I need to add like a title section or something, and this has been going on for 2.5 hours, which is a pretty long stream. Um, so there are a couple of things I'm going to do after the stream today just to kind of tidy things up. But then, yeah. So announcements. I don't have anything off the top of my head that I can think of, so we should be good for our normal streaming hours this week. So it'll be Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. As far as I know, those days should be clear for my schedule. So, all right, I think that's about it for today. So, as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.